Hi, this is your host. Today we are going to talk about research, how cloud computing changed venture capital. This is research that was done by a PhD candidate at a university. And this is really interesting because it asks one of those papers that makes perfect sense if you work in venture capital or if you're a startup founder. And very quickly before we start, if you haven't already, so let's have a look at the abstract together. It says, the emergence of cloud computing has enabled startups to reduce their upfront capital expenditures and instead shift to a variable cost structure where expenses scaled with usage. As a result, cloud startups have become a prominent feature of the venture capital landscape. However, all startups are not created equal. And among cloud startups, those that provide infrastructure as a service, EA's offerings tend to receive less investment. And it goes on to ask the question, why is it that investors are less enthusiastic about investing in EA's startups? And then in the paper, it talks about how they collected data from PitchBook, which is a venture capital database. And they found that between 2006 and 2015, there were 1839 investments in cloud startups. That is a lot of investments. But out of these investments, only 22% went into EA's companies. I think most of us know that starting a tech company today is relatively easy. You don't need a lot of money up front. You can just sign up for ABOC or a Google Cloud platform, start spinning up virtual machines, set up your databases, and you're good to go. And that is exactly what this paper is talking about. It's talking about how cloud computing changed the game when it comes to venture capital. Before cloud computing, if you wanted to start a web application, you would basically have to buy servers and you'd have to set everything up yourself. So you would need a team of maybe 5 or 10 engineers just to get your web app up and running. And then after you've got your web app up and running, you would still need those servers. So you would have to pay for electricity, and you would have to pay for people who maintain those servers. With cloud computing, however, now you don't have to do that anymore. You can literally spin up servers on demand. You don't have to pay for electricity. You don't have to maintain those servers. So now all you need is a small team of, 5 or 10 engineers. And you can literally bring your web application, or whatever it is you want to build to life in a matter of hours. And this means that venture capitalists have been able to invest in a lot more startups because now startups don't have to wait 3 or 4 years until they're ready to go. They can go almost immediately. But what this paper shows is that even though there are many more startups being funded today than ever before, SaaS. And that makes sense because these are the type of startups that can charge customers on a recurring basis. Whereas if you're an EaaS provider, it's very hard to charge customers on a recurring basis. Most of the time what happens is that ULL have a customer who will sign up for your services, and then once they've signed up, they might increase or decrease their usage over time. But generally speaking, they're not going to come back every month and buy the same thing again and again, like they would with a software as a service offering. The paper goes on to talk about how there are a few reasons for this. One is that it's very difficult for EA's providers to charge customers predictable prices. Because if you re-need provider and you trying to charge by the hour or by the minute, it's very hard to predict what those costs are going to be. With SaaS, it's much easier to predict, because you can look at historical data and see what the average usage has been, and then extrapolate that out into the future. The second reason is that it's very difficult for EA's providers to lock customers in, because if you're a provider and you are trying to lock a customer in for a certain period of time, say 3 years, the customer is very unlikely to agree, because the customer knows that the requirements are going to change over time, and they want to be locked into something that's not going to meet their needs. Whereas with SaaS, it's much easier to lock customers in because the product is more stable. If you're a SaaS provider, you can make changes to your product, but it is unlikely that those changes are going to be that disruptive to your customers. Whereas with EA, customers are always looking for ways to improve efficiency and reduce costs, so they're always going to be looking to change. The environment in which your product runs, all of this is really interesting if you are someone who works in venture capital. Personally, I'm more interested in the SaaS side of things. I think there's a lot more opportunity to build something interesting and valuable on top of EA's, but I can also understand why VCs are more interested in funding SaaS companies, because the economics are a lot more attractive. With that said, I think there will always be a place for EAs in the market, and there will always be VCs willing to fund EA's startups, because at the end of the day, EA's is a commodity, and there is a lot of money to be made in the commodity business. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It helps a lot. And again, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel. There's a lot more interesting research to come. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.